it's so hard to have the argument who would win in a fight, Goku versus Superman.
Frack on. Welcome to Frack the Canon. I am joined by my brother from another mother, Mr. CJ McCree from Milwaukee. How you doing, sir?
What's up? What's up?
All right, so this so this was your idea. We're talking about fandoms and the creators, or like you said it, good sir.
Yeah, yeah. How for a little more creative title, fandoms and fandoms.
That's the
Nah.
title of this episode. I like that.
Well, basically, what I was thinking of, is like, as freaking nerds, and you know what I mean, like everyone on the planet's a nerd. It just depends on what kind of nerd you are, right? You know what I mean? But as nerds, we're all fans of something, and fandom means like this kind of, well, fandom number one means a lot to people who are fans of things, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, but I guess like the start of fandom is kind of like how, and you said it to me years ago, is like, I mean, when they're writing a comic book, they try to write it as so like every issue is like the first, or at least that's somebody's take on comic book writing, right? Like, it's the like every issue is somebody's first issue, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, so because of that, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like as a fan, when somebody, I've been beating around the bush in this intro, but like, I feel like as a fan, you know what I mean? Like, we have like, we accept thing adaptations of this fandoms that we like, right? Like, whether it be literary work, whether it be a video game, whether it be a movie, whether it be a comic book. Um, we we hold fandom to these certain standards, right? You know what I mean? And like each of us are coming at that from a different starting point. So like what's true to a character for you may or may not be true to a character for me, depending on like our first introduction, to that character. You know what I mean? Like I was talking about earlier, you know what I mean? Every comic book issue is somebody's first comic book issue, right? But so that's where this like idea came from, right? The fandoms and fandonts. Like, what is it like about a thing that I'm a fan of? That Renee's a fan of, that even you guys, if you want to chime in and chat or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, or not chat, like in comments section, but you know what I mean? What are some of these things? Like, what is a bridge too far for you? Like in a movie or a book or a game or something that they're doing when they take this thing that you love, you know what I mean? Like, and they're gonna make an adaptation of it. Like, what's a bridge too far? What are some of the things you're willing to go along with? You know what I mean? And like, I don't know, like examine it, just sort of it's an episode about examining, like self-examining our fandom. You know what I mean? Self-examining
So
fandom.
so an example that comes to mind when you say that is like one of my earliest memories of this happening was that guy. I know like this is not Superman, it's not Superman anymore or Smallville anymore for me. Was Smallville because at a certain
Okay.
point, like he is fighting villains as that he would fight as Superman. I'm like, it's already in Metropolis. It's already doing. He fought Doomsday at one point. I'm like, but he's not Superman. Like, and he had the Justice League. I'm like, and he's not
Right,
Superman.
right. Yeah, there
He
was a
did.
Justice League, a
He
freaking
had,
small Justice League.
and I'm like, and he's not Superman. All right, I'm out. Like, I am out with this. But that was kind of like, all right, that's kind of like for me. I'm like, all right, this is not no longer for me. I'm out. Like, I people keep watching my part, but like to me, it's not because it went on for 5 more years like that. I'm like, he's the Blur. He's this. I'm like, no, he should have been Superman a long ass time ago.
And you know what? It's funny because that was one of the first examples I was gonna bring up too. It's like Smallville. And I was gonna bring it up because like Smallville's this weird thing. It's like it's around that era when we were still kind of like really superhero light as far as content goes, as far as live action, and even like on the animated front too, you know what I mean? As far as just like superhero stuff that you could intake, you know what I mean? Like we were light on it. It was Smallville and nothing else, buddy. So like if you
Maybe
you
cartoons. Maybe cartoons. Because at one point, maybe X Men Evolution was on at the other time.
Right, and
Maybe
it's
that
like
was it.
those are, I mean, when it comes down to it, like no matter how you look at it, no matter how good those cartoons were, they were still aimed at kids, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's still this thing that really kids are supposed to be watching, but like we were also getting enjoyment out of like, but like, you know what I mean? And so it's like the, thinking about it in that terms, like Smallville, I feel like we accepted it more because of the times, right? Like
Mhm.
because okay, well we didn't really have anything, but at the same time, Smallville was also a take, right? Like so I guess in this conversation, like is there room for a different take on a thing in our fandom, right? Is there room like looking at Smallville, right? How and you said like Smallville had you until up a certain point where
Yeah.
you were like,
I
nah,
mean,
dude.
going back
Like
to the same character, there are things too. So like, and you and I have talked about this offline. Man of Steel. Like one of the biggest things that bugs me about that movie is when he breaks Zod's leg.
Never.
I'm like, Superman would never do that. But to your point, he's like, well, he's not Superman yet. I'm like, that's a good point. That is a take. I think I don't agree with, but it is a take. You know. So to quote it from the great book of CJ, chapter
yeah.
69, it's a take, bro.
And I think like and that's where I get torn because it's like I do think that there is room for takes on characters, and I think that also speaks to the to fandom and like how cool it can be. Like, hey, here's this character that has survived the test of time, and he's so popular that not only are there different versions of him, but like you know what I mean, like there's room for a different interpretation of what like he can be. But of course, like I think that's where it gets hard period, right? Like because you know, stepping on a little bit of a tangent here. The reason it's so hard to have the argument who would win in a fight, Goku versus Superman, is because like there's like kind of like one dude who wrote Goku, right? Like there's like one version of Goku. There are different like adaptations story. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, but like Goku is like Akira Toriyama. Goku's this dude. He's gonna be that dude, and he's that dude because that one dude made him. You know what I mean? Like, but when we get to like something like Superman to Western comics, like there are so many different versions of like what this character can be, right?
Like
Like,
there, I know I see what because there is Red Sun, right? Like where instead if what if Superman landed in the Soviet Union? What if he landed somewhere else? So like yes, there is that take. So I'm like, because I guess if it's an alternate dimension, at least from what I've noticed in our in this fandom recently, as long as the main continuity isn't messed up, we're fine. Like as long as, for example, when Peter Parker died in the Ultimate Universe and Miles Morales became the Spider-Man, became the Ultimate Spider-Man, like
mhm.
well, 616 Peter Parker's still around. But if he were to become the main one, then people would lose their S. You know, people
Yeah.
would
And like and see that's the thing. It's like what is accepted continuity, right? Because then there's also going to be people who are like, okay, well, like new comics are constantly made, and there's also going to be people like, oh, well, that's not my, you know what I mean? Like that's not my. New
yeah.
creators are taking on different things, and like things change to the point where, like, you know what I mean? Like I think it's funny, like when some people talk about like there are so many comics. Are you sure? You know what I mean? Like, are you sure that's not comic? Are you sure this is not like something that they have done before? Like, they're comics been around for quite some time at this point, right? In 2024, comics been around for quite some time. Like, and they've done some crazy things, like with our characters. You know what I mean? Like some stuff that, like, if we saw, like, you know what I mean, we might be shocked or appalled or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I think about like the wide range in quality of Batman movies, right? Like that's probably the superhero movie that we've had the most movies of and probably the most iterations of. Maybe Superman is different.
I
I don't
got one
know.
for you. Ninja Turtles,
Wait, what about Ninja Turtles?
different takes, dude. There was the 81, there was the
Right,
80
right,
version,
right.
2003, the
Well,
movies.
what I was saying, well,
Right,
what I was gonna
right,
say
right.
about Batman, though specifically is that all the movies vary in quality, but they are all like distinctly comic book Batman. Like no matter how you look at it, like you can find a comic book Batman that is like every movie that came out. You know what I mean? But like, does that make it like acceptable? Does that make it great? Like, you know what I mean? Does that mean that it makes a good movie? Like, I don't know, but like, yeah, yeah.
No, I feel because like there is that too. Like I remember the first Batman movie. I'm like, this is not a good movie with Batman and Robin. And I was
Mm,
11 years old when that movie came out, and I'm like, I just know what it was, but I'm like, this is not a good movie. My first time, I'm like, no, I don't like this movie because there were movies that would bore me, and I just didn't care. But that was the first time I'm like, this is not a good movie, and
uh,
that was the take two, right? Because it was too much like the '66 Batman. But that works fine for that era. Now I'm like, after the Tim Burton Batman, I'm like, nah, not my Batman.
right, right. But then even like what you were talking about Ninja Turtles, even right? Like, here's something that is like Ninja Turtles is one of those properties that I kind of consider, and I guess all fandom properties are kind of like this, but Ninja Turtles is one of those properties that is kind of like, yeah, it was a comic book before it was a cartoon, but it was popular because of the cartoon. So everybody thinks of the cartoon as the canon of what Ninja Turtles is. You know what I mean? Like, because like there's the there's the comic book that was made, but then there's like the greater sort of like society consciousness version of what Ninja Turtles is. You know what I mean? So that is another interesting one where it's like here's another series that's kind of like always kind of been around in the background. Like there seemed to always be a ninja version of the Ninja Turtles like active in some pop culture like arena, you know what I mean? Like there is like they are kind of like always around. And I do think that's interesting because it is one of those properties where it's like, okay, like is there yeah, there was an origin, but is there an accepted canon of this of what Ninja Turtles is? Like kind of
Ooh,
loosely, like kind of like movie to movie, it's similar, sure, like what I mean, like,
we're
but
brothers and
like
ooh, it's the main.
exactly, and that's the main thing, right? But then, like, even when we start to think about like the other characters' origins, right? They start to differ, right? Like, who was Splinter? You know what I mean? Like, was he
Yes,
a dude who got turned into a rat, or was he a rat that got morphed? You know what I mean? Like,
into
it kind of
anthropomorphic. Yeah.
exactly, it
Well,
just
before
kind
you
of
move on, I gotta ask you that. Which is your preferred Splinter origin story?
that's such a crazy freaking question.
I'm
I
gonna go. Mine
forget.
is a rat turning into an anthropomorphic rat. Because
I like that too because, and I only like that because of who I am, and it's a less tragic origin story, to be
exactly, it's so less tragic. It's so
honest.
less, it is, because I'm like, that's so fracked up. That's so messed up. It's not as yeah, exactly. I'm like, dude, yeah, because I'm rewatching the old school, the ROG Ninja Turtles, and I'm like, that's his origin story. That's what it was. That's messed up.
Yeah, yeah, you know what I mean. But it's like that Ninja Turtles, that era, it was kind of like born from like the popularity of like genre, you know what I mean? Like, and that was very much in line with what that was, you know what I mean? Like the Toxic Crusader and all that kind of thing, you know
Right,
what I mean? Like these and Swamp Thing, even, you know what I mean? Like just these kind of like tragic type of heroes, kind of mutilated body horror kind of heroes, I guess, you know what I mean? Like, and that was popular at the time and that worked then. And yeah, like I said, I prefer the rat thing, like, but like, also then a rat learns karate and whatever.
I mean, because technically too. So we're kind of I'm kind of diverting a little bit. Technically too, like they were created by Daredevil. Like they are a Daredevil's canon because technically that always was the one that blinded Matt Murdock. And supposedly, fingers crossed, there's going to be a Daredevil Ninja Turtles crossover soon. So
I mean, that'd be great.
I'm like, ugh. But back to the topic at hand, good sir.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I'm trying to like even in the main topic, like we're kind of like just bouncing around, like using this as like a springboard to just kind of talk about different things, you know what I mean? But I'm trying to think of like some of my fan don'ts, like like I guess I'm inching ever towards like the like what are some of these like cardinal sins of the
Right,
thing, and we want to say like I think like mostly we want to say like we want you to be true to that character, right? We want you to be true to the story, to the source material, but then at the same time, like we were just talking about, like for some of these things, it's not as simple as it seems, right? Like the
right,
Ninja Turtles, like if you're true to Ninja Turtles' true source material, it might go over a lot of people's heads because most people, like I said, they think about the '80s cartoon, like Origin, I mean, like or. or maybe one of the new movies that have come out since then. You know what I mean? Like it's like what there are different canons, you know what I mean? Going back to like the example of Superman versus Goku, you know what I mean? Like d- depending on which Superman we're talking about, my answer could change. You know what I mean? Like if we're talking about Justice League animated universe Superman, absolutely not. You know what I mean? He was pretty weak. Like but like I've heard of Superman being described as a in some iterations as a being of pure will, like so like he's basically as strong as he needs to be, which is exactly what Goku sounds like you know what I mean, like so it's like if we're talking that, then like maybe it's more even than we're thinking, you know what I mean,
Well,
like
so we're comparing like there's Goku, right? Dragon Ball, who was written for the most part written by one person, and
mhm,
Superman, who at another point was written by these two guys, and then it became the company's property, right? What about
right.
Star Wars, who was created by one person, and at a certain point, the fandom was like, "Frack you, dude! What is this?" Right? And I'm like, like I think that is the perfect example of like the creator, and then being like the fandom being like, "No,
Exactly, and like that is I think you're exactly right, like that's the quintessential like that's like the main set piece of this topic, right? Like that's the most, and it might be just because like it's the biggest fandom that may exist
right,
right now. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's such a it's a property that's touched so many people and is important to so many people. And so you get all these like opinions and at that point, like that's where I think like, okay, well, who owns fandom, right? Like a thing fandom doesn't exist without the thing, but the thing can't be as successful without the fans.
exactly."
You know what I mean? Like who like it. Like the thing has to be there first, and then people flock to it that like it and appreciate it, and then that grows. But once it's this huge thing, what do fans own it because they like it? You know what I mean? Like, do they get to make decisions about this thing, or does the person who made this and it may not have wanted like Star Wars is a thing that they thought was franchisable and could make money and
Mhm.
George Lucas was still interested in it enough to continue it, right? But like here's another property, right? Alien, right? The first one done by Ridley Scott. Um it's a property, but it's not a property that he necessarily cared to continue, right? So you just have this movie that was a one-off, and then they came back and they went to do a sequel, and then they made it with other people, and then they made other sequels with other people. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, is there a canon there? Is there, you know what I mean? Like, there, Alien has a fandom, but like, who cares, kind of a thing? Like, because each movie is creating
Its own
yeah,
its own
each movie's
canon."
creating the canon as it goes, you know?
Like
Like.
I've only seen the first. To be fair, I've only seen the first two, and because of you and Sarah. So I mean, like after two, they're like, and I yeah. So have I seen the other ones? No, I haven't. I didn't even see Alien vs Predator, and those are pieces of poop. Um, yeah, it was. But back to the point. Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
But I guess what is your thought on the fandom like on the fandom? Do you err on the side of the creator? Do you err on the side of the fan?
I feel like this. I feel like because we're creative people. Take a shot. Um, we create what we want as a creator. This is me speaking as a creator. This is what I create. This is what I'm feeling. If people react to it, I'm in that zone. But you're reacting to what I created, right? To my whatever was happening to me in that mindset. People are reacting to that. So they're my feelings, right? They're my, for lack of a better word, yeah, feelings, emotions, my ideas, my policies, whatever, right? And people identify with that. Okay, cool. You put they're out of all this, I created this, and people like to that. So I feel that okay, you're reacting to my creation, but it's mine, right? So that's how I feel. But at the same
Yeah,
time, it goes to like, but like, there are times where I'm like, back to Star Wars. I'm like, dude, like, what is that? Okay, no, not even that. Not even Spider-Man 3. There were some things that Peter Parker did. I'm like, Peter Parker would never do that. Like, there are things that, yes, hold on, do that, hold on, do that again. Yep. um, you know how I feel about the symbiotes, and it's symbiotes. Um,
Oh my.
um, like there was another thing I was talking with you offline. There was a Power Rangers fan film that came out, and I'm like, what is this? Like the action's cool, but this is not Power Rangers. Like it's yeah, I can see why yeah, there are I can see why what the person liked about Power Rangers. I'm like, but this is not Power Rangers. Like it's not all like yeah, Power Rangers is about it's action, it's a martial arts movie for kids, right?
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, though, it's like there is some more depth than just that. Like there is some a little bit of heart and a little bit of like anachronisms in its own timeline and a little bit of hokiness. I'm like, that's what makes it Power Rangers. And that thing did not that thing too seriously. I'm like,
Mhm.
this isn't Power Rangers. Like, call it anything else but Power Rangers. If that makes any sense.
No, it totally does. And it's like I'm struggling to pinpoint like you brought up like good points. Obviously, you brought up Spider-Man 3, right? Like which has I'm wearing the Venom shirt, like has one of my favorite Spider-Man characters, one of my favorite comic book characters in Venom,
Yes.
and it has one of like I love symbiote Spider-Man in that whole arc and like and then following into the creation of Venom, like one of my favorite stories that I feel like is unfortunate that they had to shove it into that movie. Because honestly, like upon like distant rewatch, you know what I mean? Like, 'cause obviously I hated this movie when it came out. Um,
Same.
like
Same.
any good Spider-Man fan. Um, but like upon distant rewatch, like I can accept it more because but it still like pisses me off a lot. But there are actually genuine like really good moments in that movie. And I think that it makes it even worse, like because it ended up as a trash fire. You know what I mean? Like that. It's like, dang, there could have actually been a good movie here. There are moments here that where there is like a good movie here, like, but it's just surrounded by a bunch of crap. But
But it's funny because I was watching it again recently just to watch it back. I'm like, you know what? It's not that bad, but I'm like, I remember like hating it so much when I first saw it. But I wonder too. I forgot. Maybe it was is it that it's not as bad in hindsight, or that movies today have gotten so bad that compared to today's movies, they're like, this is better.
we're just massaged by it. No, like I don't know. Like maybe there's a bit of both in there, right? Like I just feel like I was able to look at it in like because it's like I've said on different episodes that we've done. Like look, it's hard for me to love a Spider-Man movie because I like Spider-Man so much. You know what I mean? Like so there are a lot of things. There's a lot of baggage coming into the movie with me because like hey listen, I want this out of a Spider-Man movie, like I want this out of a Spider-Man movie, and that's like a personal thing, right? Like as my fandom coming from I mean what I like about Spider-Man, what I grew up liking about Spider-Man, and that here's the thing that may be different from what not maybe that is obviously different from what every filmmaker who has a Spider-Man movie brings to the table because I have issues with like all of them, you know what I mean? Like, but that doesn't mean it's not their Spider-Man, right? Doesn't mean that it doesn't like fit what they're doing, right? Like when I think about some of the Fandonts that I don't like, right? Like I one thing I don't I hate like the villain. Sometimes it's done well, okay, right? Like the redemptive villain arc. If the villain is sympathetic to begin with or whatever, and they set that up and their story is cool and empathetic, that's fine. But like a lot of times like I hate like the I just hate like the cop out bad guy at the end kind of a thing. You know what I mean? Where it's just like we can't figure this out, so they just turn good. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Like, I think that's annoying kind of a thing. Like, but or getting the villain wrong, period. Like, I think that's a fan don't for me, like in some things. Like,
It's funny because I remember there was that whole wave in the early beside the Marvel because I felt Marvel Studios when we did a previous episode like the rise and fall of Marvel Studios and DC Studios was
mm,
like I feel that Iron Man was such a good strong point. I'm like that's just, this character is they were character pieces and they got the character right, but now it's such a machine that they're like we'll just pop it out. I'm like and I feel like right now it's just Marvel itself is in the we're a machine we got to push product out. I'm like they've lost that like I don't know about you, but when I first saw Iron Man, the first Iron Man movie, it felt like an indie movie with with a bigger budget. I'm
Mm.
like, and that's kind of gone now. It just feels like almost soulless, at least for me. Um, except for
Yeah.
like, I guess All Along and WandaVision, I'm like, these are really good. And it's funny because it's the same showrunner, creator. So there is
Oh,
that
okay.
vibe. I'm like, it feels like okay, there is heart to this. There is a soul to this thing. Where was I going with this?
I mean, I somewhat agree with you, like somewhat don't. Like I do, I agree with like especially like some of the like in more recent years, some of the stuff that has felt like it has been kind of pushed out. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like or it needed to. Like it has had that quality to it, right? Like of a like, all right, this doesn't feel as like there was as much care as like the like you said, the first Iron Man. You know what I mean? Like but they kind of had to, and I do I mean, miss those kind of stories that like they were necessary, like they were kind of like this thing that you almost like kind of had to get through, but like they were all decent, like it didn't matter. It's like it was just sort of a necessary setup step, you know what I mean? And I feel like they have lost that aspect to them. Like I feel like it does feel kind of like everything does feel kind of like rushed, you know what I mean? Like and like cobbled together a bit, you know what I mean? Like where it doesn't feel like doesn't necessarily feel character led anymore. Where like I like in the Infinity Saga, I guess to dub it,
Mhm.
um, is as big as a movie got, it did still feel character led. Maybe with the exception of the Avengers movies because they're more spectacles and they're just kind of balancing a lot of characters and they're just more trying to balance these characters and show them off and tell a story if they can on the side. But like outside of that, like you know what I mean, like even though Civil Captain America Civil War like was kind of an Avengers movie, like it felt like a Captain America movie. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like it like all these movies, you know what I mean? They felt character led in ways that I even found surprising at sometimes, you know what I mean? Like and now maybe they don't feel like that, you know what
Yeah,
I mean? I don't know.
because it felt after at least for me, like after Avengers Endgame, there was a big quality drop. Like, what was that one about the gods, the immortals? Not the immortals,
Oh, Eternals.
the Eternals. I'm like, what was this? It felt like I'm like what because it wasn't there were cool ideas, but it was never executed. Um,
Oh, it was just a weird movie. It
like
felt like a Marvel DC movie, is what it felt
it really
like.
did. It really did. Um, like here, people love No Way Home, and here's the thing: we've talked about. To me, they cheated. I'm like, when you brought in Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, the fan in me was awesome, but the filmmaker in me was like, you guys cheated. That doesn't count. That to me.
See,
Um,
I don't
mhm.
see it as I mean, I'll let you finish it though. I don't see it as a cheat just because like there have been three. It's like it took us a while to get here, kind of a thing. Like that's
Right.
why I don't see it as a cheat. Like there have been three Spider-Man live action franchises. You know what I mean? Like we have like now maybe like Tom Holland's like hero wasn't where and I have different you know feelings about some of the stuff in the movie. But I'm sorry to cut you off on
No,
that.
no, no. That was it. Because like, and I at a certain point, I I was like, I'm kind of because we've talked like we're nerd like it's a bit, but I'm like I'm kind of at my break with superhero stuff. I'm like I kind of need a break. I've gone back
Mhm.
to reading comic books because I'm just like you know what it's pure if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But like the last thing I actually enjoyed from Marvel, I think was She-Hulk. And right now when I'm watching Agatha All Along, that a lot. I haven't watched What If season two. What else has come out? Like I don't think anything has come out recently. Has there? Like they've
Because
cut back on some stuff.
I think they were on a little bit of maybe a break, like kind of
Yeah.
like not like a real break, but like they just
Oh, and
hadn't come out with it.
and Chang-Chi. Chang-Chi was awesome. Like I'm like it's a Hong Kong fu movie in the Marvel universe. Like but
I
it
like
was like that's what it was. It was like it was
like I agree with you, like because there are just a lot of properties that just kind of feel. like as much as I have enjoyed some stuff in I keep wanting to say season, it's phase 4 and 5, but like season 4 and 5 of the Marvel show, um there really isn't anything that I enjoy more than the stuff that I loved in Infinity War. You know, I'm sorry, in the Infinity Saga. Like basically in seasons 1 through 3 of the Marvel show. I like so it's like yeah, I'm totally with you there, like on that. Um, man, I had a thought and like it is escaping me. Um, what was I gonna say? But anywho, like
We'll go back to the original question that you posed. Who is the true owner of the content? The creators or the fans? Like, where does it belong? Who does it belong to?
I think it becomes I think like as we've had this talk, as we've been sitting here talking about this, like, I think it's very situational, right? Like and it depends on what the owner of said content, like who is the owner. It depends on what the owner it depends on what the owner like legal owner of said content wants to get out of what they're pushing out, right? Like um two things that just came out that people hate. The Crow, Joker 2, right? Um, two like big things that are based on like big fandoms, right? Like and like they both of them are kind of like lauded by pretty much everybody, you know what I mean? Like and they're lauded by people like or from what I hear like with good reason and because like maybe it's because they deviated from the source material or whatever like. And I also think about another that's the other thing I'm picking on that I forgot. Venom 3 is about to come out.
Oh,
um in like a week or less week or something like that. And like I was so like as you know and as I've said like I enjoyed Venom 1. I wish they didn't make it, but I enjoyed Venom 1 like more than I expected to, and more than most people did, according to like Metacritic and all that, right? But Venom 2 is like it's probably like my most hated superhero movie. Like when I like really think about it, it's probably like the superhero movie I hate like the most, you know what I mean? Like so we have this Venom 3, like
mhm.
cool and Venom comic book lore, right? But is that enough for me as a fan? Like I feel burned as a fan, like, but who owns this, right? Like in a situation like Venom 3, like this is just like most people who are Spider-Man fans are kind of like hating what Sony's doing with their movies right now, right? Like it feels like kind of like disrespectful of the source material and it just feels like like this cash grab that they're trying to cash in on the popularity of superheroes and the MCU as a whole because they keep trying to do this little one-way tie-in thing. The situation of Venom 3 like I mean legally they own it, so yeah, they can make it, but like fan outcry seems to be like fairly universal. Yeah, there are people here and there that are like, and most of those people are just like the casual film audience, and maybe that's what they're trying to cash in on anyway. Someone who just superhero movie is a superhero movie kind of a thing.
Right.
Um, but in that case, I would say like, okay, and maybe because it affects me more, I'd be like, well, no, I feel like the fans are right, like because they don't demonstrate a respect for the source material, right? But then that goes back to like I say that, but then that goes back to the question like, oh, so are there no room for takes in this world? You know what I mean? Like Madam Web is a take, Morbius is a take. You know what I mean? Like Venom is a take, Venom and Let There Be Carnage is a take. Like,
Here's okay. It's funny you say that too because I was something I realized, and it happened during Black Widow. When Black Widow came out, and I was talking to someone at the bar I go to, and I'm like, "Oh, I see what it is. It's because people wanted this, and they at least this is what I was looking for this too. Is that people want this thing to happen in either a movie, cartoon, whatever, blah blah blah. And if they don't get it, they hate it because they were like, "This is gonna happen," and they didn't get their way. It's the
mm,
fan of entitlement that they want this. I'm like, and I feel a lot of the toxicity comes like, we wanted this, but you didn't give us that. So then f you, and like we're boycotting now. The Joker 2 thing, they said it's going to be a musical since the beginning, since the get go. So
Mm.
it was the people's like people. It was out there. People
Okay.
refuse to believe it, but I'm like, I just like I don't feel sorry for them. And you know me, I've said this before on this show on one of our past episodes. I am not about seeing a movie about that glorifies a supervillain because he at the end of the day he's a villain. Yeah, he's not the Joker from the Batman series, but I'm like still like they're using the Joker name. They're using that. I'm like I don't want to see that. Like I don't think villains should be made heroes. And like we said offline too, that's what Sony's doing with their characters. They're villains in the regular universe, but here they're anti-heroes. I don't want that. Like I
Right.
barely like the Punisher.
Because in the end, it's like, why are you even using this character? You know what
Exactly.
I
Like
mean?
why using the
Like, why
name?
are you even using this character? Like, really, just to cash in, really. You know what I mean? It's like literally you're only using this character's name as a cash grab, and it's like, yeah, I get how like stories work, right? Like the classic hero's journey story, but it's like when you apply that to the villain, like I don't know, I just feel like, well, to what end? Like, what are we even doing here? You know what I mean? Like, and why are you making it this character? You know what I mean? I don't know. Like Sony, like you like if you must do this stupid crap that you're doing, like, you have other characters, do a Black Cat movie or something, do Silver Sable or something, you know what I mean? Like do freaking Naranya, you know what I mean?
Black
Like
Cat.
right, you know what I mean?
Rumor
Like
rumor is Sydney Sweeney is gonna be Black Cat in Spider-Man 4.
Sydney Sweeney, like the girl who played Madam Web.
No, that's Dakota Johnson. She was Julia Carpenter in Madam Web.
Oh, okay. I knew that name sounded synonymous with that movie, I guess. I was just like,
Yeah, no, like she's in Euphoria or whatever, and I'm like, it's one about high schoolers getting all messed up and getting all high and stuff. I'm like, I'm way past that. Like I'm over that phase.
with Zendaya's in Euphoria, right?
Yeah.
Okay, okay,
And I tried watching it and I'm like, this show's not for me.
yeah. And that's okay.
Yeah. And that's okay. Get off my butt. That's right. I said butts.
You said but. But yeah, I mean, I guess, but yeah, like we were said in this roundabout way, like I feel like it's situational, right? Like, and but in certain other situations, it's like, maybe because you can't subvert, and not that every movie like should just be about subverting expectations, right?
Right.
But you can't subvert expectations if you just give people what they expect either. You know what I mean? Like, and some things are this thing that like where it's like, oh, I didn't expect you to be this, but I kind of dig it. You know what I mean? Like, and those are some of the best things where like you get surprised, you get your expectations subverted, and they take you to the like they use it to take you to this higher level of
But I
appreciation.
but I feel cause I'm with you too. Like I didn't expect this, but I like what I got. You know, I was expecting this, but you gave me this. Awesome, that's cool. I feel that people nowadays, cause again, I got into argument with this. I got this person. He was like, I wanted them to give me this in Black Widow. They didn't give it to me, so F it. I'm like, oh, you're one of those. I'm like that. Everyone now wants it their way. And if they don't get their way or what they wanted, then forget it, frack it. You know, I'm like,
Mm.
and I feel that that's what's happening a lot with fandoms. They're like, we want this, give us this. I'm like, and they don't get it. Like, do you remember when the Dark Knight came out? Everyone thought the Riddler was going to be the next villain. I'm like,
Oh yeah,
where did this
yeah,
come from?
yeah,
I'm like we just came out of the movie. Like, how? Where are you getting the information from?
yeah. Right,
Like,
exactly, exactly. That's funny. And
no,
right, exactly. And then they hear this thing and then it just grows in popularity and then like they demand it and it's like, bro, like I don't even know where you heard that, but like like that has nothing to do with what I'm making. Yeah.
exactly. So I'm like I remember the big one was the big one that was. I'm like, okay, that's kind of. I hope the rumor's true. And when it happened, I'm like, that's cool. John Krasinski was going to be Reed Richards,
Yeah, yeah.
and I'm like, oh, that's cool, that's fun, great, cool. Nothing else said. Nothing else needed. You know. Um. Yeah, I got nothing else. Anything else you want to touch on? Anything else you want
Yeah,
to?
I as far as on the topic, I feel like we did a good examination on
We
on
went deeper than I thought
fandom
we were
and
going to go. I'm not going to lie.
what'd you say?
We went deeper than I thought we were going to go.
I would agree. Like I
Yeah.
thought we would probably talk about a couple of movies or something like that, but like which we kind of did, but
Yeah.
and we even got a chance to rant about Spider-Man 3 again. But but
Low hanging fruits, my friend. Low hanging fruits.
exactly, you know what I mean? Like, but yeah, like, you know what I mean? I don't know, we don't get a lot of comments or anything, but like, if this topic is something that's interesting, like, chime in on like some of your fandonts. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, what are some of the things that like, you know what I mean? Like, you guys don't really vibe with movies. Like, you'll accept this, but you won't. But this other thing is a bridge too far, right? You know what I mean? Like, you know what? I'll take what I mean, fine that I'm trying to, I can't even think of an exact example right now, like of something that's like, okay, this is a take, like it's actually pretty cool. Like even Nolan's Batman trilogy, right? Like
Yeah.
that's not as comic accurate Batman as like some people might feel like is, you know what I mean? That's a definite take on the Batman story. You know what I mean? It's a take that is meant to make it feel more in line with reality, you know what I mean? And yet it's a lot of people's favorite Batman thing, you know.
It's funny because a lot of the Tim Burton Batmans are so gothic and so like just drenched in gothic and fantasy and just film noir. Like it's so like, and then what's his name? You said it. The director,
Nolan.
Chris Nolan. Like his are just so realistic and grounded. I'm like, but it's the same character, right? And they both work. But back then, when they do Superman and Superman kills Zod, I'm like, no, he shouldn't have done that. Period. So like, it's like that for me is like he wouldn't do that, in my opinion.
Right. And are you right for having that opinion?
We'll
I
see. I
mean,
mean,
like honestly, like that turned like you aren't whether you're right or wrong, you're not alone. Like that movie
right.
was very divisive, and that moment was a very divisive moment among Superman fans, among comic book fans.
Not
Like,
even Superman fans, it's just around general audiences and like in general. Like just I remember people talking like Superman do that. Superman, I'm like, why did he fly up? Blah blah blah. I'm like, you're right. Like there could have been other ways than breaking his neck. But yeah. Final comments, final thoughts.
um, fandom is cool. No, I honestly like it is, and that's why we record this show, and it's why we like the stuff we like. Helps us escape a little bit of out of our mundane lives, out of our 9 to 5s, out of our classrooms, out of whatever. It helps us escape, you know what I mean? But it's
Right.
also important to remember, like, hey, like sometimes there are people behind these fandoms, right? Like sometimes there are people who are creating these fandoms. Sometimes there are lots of collaborative things that go into it. So, you know what I mean? Like, hey, um, like Heath Ledger said, why so serious? You know what I mean? Like, it's in the end, like, if it's a comic book, it's art on a page. Like, calm down, take it down, tone it down a bit. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm saying this to everybody. I'm saying this to me too. You know what I mean? Like, hey, look, tone it down a bit. You know what I mean? It's a freaking fake thing. Like, we get you like it, like, but tone it down a
It just it wasn't Heath Ledger, it was the Joker that said it, not you.
bit.
I'm sorry, I had to do it. It was right there. I'm sorry, bro. You just set me up for um, but yes, at the end of the day, they're fictional characters.
Hey, they're talking about fictional characters. Fictional characters. Am I getting through to you at all?
I'm not getting to you at all. What's that from?
I I know it so well, but I can't think of it right
Jay
now.
and Bob Strike Back.
Yes, yes. I'm like, I know it's some 90s comedy that I watched.
Right there, that one.
Nice. Yes, but said by Ben Affleck himself. Not as himself, but the
I put
man.
the bomb in Phantoms, yo. All right, we're just quoting Kevin Smith right now. All right, I got nothing else. Like, just some like I get it. Like, yes, you can feel passionate about one thing, but without hurting people. There are people like I remember. Last thing I'm gonna touch about this because it was ridiculous. Was like when Dan Slott was doing Superior Spider-Man and Doc Ock became Spider-Man, and he got death threats. I'm like,
Yeah,
why?
I was one of them. I'm just kidding.
Dear NSA. I'm kidding. Yeah, it's just, yeah, it's fun. It's meant to be fun. Like it's just supposed to be escapism. There are other things we can do. Um, yeah. Alrighty, thank you, CJ. Thank you for this. This was a lot of fun actually. This was like it felt really good to this episode. In hindsight, I'm like, oh my god, it was cathartic for me. Um,
Get in touch with your inner fanboy.
I'm like, oh, where have you been, inner fanboy? All right, bro. Thank you. We'll see you same freaking time. Hold on, let me do this again. Thank you. We'll see you same freaking time, same freaking channel. Frack off.
Resplandece a mi alrededor, volar. Destellos brillan en las nubes sin fin. Con libertad puedes cruzar hoy el cielo azul, que da furia.